Well, another day, another layoff. This is the new norm. And it's not just that it bugs me that there's layoff, it's that what bugs me is that there's layoffs and they're moving manufacturing from the United States to Mexico. And now you're like, well, that's been going on for years. Yes, it has, but now we're just accelerating it and it is starting to really drive me nuts. And I'm looking at all these huge American companies that are actually moving their production to Mexico. So I got a whole list here that they said they're going to increase investments. And some of them I didn't even know that they're actually going to, put up plants in Mexico and start expanding. So in the automotive industry, we have BMW, Tesla, and others. In the electronic space, Samsung, LG, and then we have the most crooked corporation out of the whole world, Foxconn, is increasingly investing in Mexico, right? And I'm going to get to Foxconn a little bit later. Medical devices, Medtronics, Johnson and Johnson, aerospace, with companies like Bombardier and Safran establishing facilities, furniture companies like Steelcase and American Woodmark are expanding production, renewable energy, solar companies. And I don't fault, corporations to make moves like that because, they're in it for profit. And, normally in how capitalism was intended, you move manufacturing to where it's cheaper and you can get more for your money. But nowadays, capitalism came to a whole new meaning where you just extort people. And when you go down the rabbit hole a little bit, and you look at what these companies get for investing in Mexico, these are not wins for Mexico, at least not for the Mexican people, because they're going to get low wages, long hours, unsafe work conditions, and lack of benefit and migrant labor. So they might not even hire Mexicans. They might hire somebody else that that's just around the block that they pay, or not, who knows, to do stuff for them. And unsafe working conditions like construction and agriculture have high risk of accidents, and there's no oversight, right? So all these companies are there to basically extort these people now, that they're like, oh, there's too much pressure with the unions in the United States. There's too much taxes. So what do? Let's cut our costs by 70%, move to Mexico, and then we can import the same product into the United States at no cost. With the NAFTA, with the North Atlantic Trading Agreement, or whatever the hell it's called. And so let's just do that. And then we're gonna exploit all these workers. And remind you, when Foxconn moves into your city, Foxconn is this company right here that used to be in China, that they had to put nets around the buildings because people were jumping off, committing suicide because the work conditions were so bad. And when Foxconn says stuff like, we're going to start coming to, we're going to invest in your backyard, you need to be super aware of what's going to happen, and you need government oversight. That's why Foxconn should come into the United States with where they have high taxes, where they have oversight of unions, where they can do things the right way. And we'll see how great the company's going to be. Because when you're just going to extort people in other countries, you know, that's great for taxes and whatnot, for the country itself, but not for the people. And then again, these people need to have something to work for. They should have something to show for at the end of the day. When you work for something, you should have something to show for, and not just, hey, your paycheck might be coming, it might not, but guess what? If something happens to you, sorry, life's tough, see ya, and they'll boot you. And in the US, you have these protections, right? With workman's comp and all this other stuff. And so it's not lucrative to invest here if that's what your intention of doing things, right? And in Mexico and other countries in the world, they don't have those strong oversight, so they move manufacturing away from these highly governed areas to these lesser governed places, right? And there's always a country that has less oversight and cheaper labor, so that's what's going on. And when you see places like China, like Foxconn moving out of China because it's getting too expensive, that they're starting to get labor laws and all this other stuff going, then I'm like, oh gosh, we are so not moving into the right direction. Because at the end of the day, what really needs to happen is that we in the United States need to say, hey, if you want to sell in our market, you need to contribute to our market. If you want to sell stuff for Americans, you need to invest in America, because who's going to buy your cars? Who's going to buy your tractors? And that is not fair, right? And so I was thinking the other day, when BYD is thinking about, coming to the United States and start, putting a plant there, in Mexico, and start, bringing BYD over, people are like, oh, I'll never buy a BYD because it's, I'm not going to support that. Well, you're supporting, you know, all these other companies that do the exact same thing. They just have the CEOs making 25, $30 million plus stock options. And in China, other CEOs don't get that much. So you're not doing anything wrong with buying these, because they're all not manufacturing in the United States, right? So you need to be aware of what is going on, right? And so when you invest into the United States, right? When you invest into manufacturing, you invest into all these deals into the United States, right? You invest into, what do I mean by deals, right? What I mean is you buy land, you pay the city tax, you pay for the permits, you pay for inspections, and it comes with like a package deal, right? Because if you're Foxconn, you can come to any city and say, we're going to create 5,000 workplaces. We need more favorable conditions. And when you have 5,000, if you're going to create 5,000 jobs, you can probably negotiate. And that's what you should be doing as a corporation, but you shouldn't move your whole company abroad because you can get cheaper labor and extort these people in another country. And I'm sorry for these people that are going to have to work under these circumstances. It's just not right, because the outcome isn't going to be where, the optimist in me says, oh, they're going to be all right. They're going to be doing good. They're going to lift the people out of poverty, in Jalisco, they're going to start, they can get a higher wage. They can start, being, in getting their intro into tech, and we lift them all out of poverty. But that is most likely not the case. If you know American companies, they're not going to lift you out of poverty. They're just going to extort you for the maximum amount that they can extort you, and then move on. And they chew you up and spit you out. That's what they're really, really good at. And it's not that I'm like bashing them and trying to be like, yo, this isn't good. I'm just like, you need to be aware that all these things all happen for a reason. And when you do these things and, support them, then you are basically voting with your wallet that this is right and that you support that. And I'm just like, man, we are in a crossroad now where all these companies are moving overseas. They're just all doing it. And when you have nobody producing anymore, you'll end up like these coal mine towns in West Virginia. Check these out. So there's this guy that does like documentaries on YouTube, and he basically goes into these towns and he interviews some people, and you see that drugs, you see drugs, you see homelessness. And when you ask them all, they all tell you the same thing, that all their jobs were related to this one coal company or whatnot that they were all basically working for. And now they're basically done with that company. So the company shut down, and it put everybody around them in poverty and drugs and all that. And once that happens, there's going to be no more tax revenue. And these politicians haven't understood that once there is no more jobs, there's no more taxes. And then who's going to fund their paychecks? Who's going to fund their huge campaigns? Because at one point, you're going to be like, I need money to fund my campaign, my political campaign, but who's going to pay that? Who's going to spend money on political campaigns if they cannot, if these companies cannot have the money because they can't sell their highly priced products, right? So when you have highly priced products and nobody can buy it, you need to lower products. And then what do? Well, you pass it on to these people that have absolutely nothing. You take it from these people that are working for almost no money in Mexico and you extort them even more, right? You hammer down these people in Mexico or wherever you're manufacturing, if it's in China, and you start paying them even less because, your products, there's not enough profit because, you got to make a lot of profit in the United States to stay afloat, right? Because, you need to fly private, your CEOs, your executives need to fly private. They need these big offices. They need these big conglomerate, all these parties. They need to fly to Paris, to have meetings. And so when you're looking at all these movements that these big companies are making, you're like, where is this in the long term going to end to? Like, where is this going to end up? And the only thing that I'm seeing where this is going to end up is in disaster. Because where are these people going to go when there's nobody can buy these expensive trucks, cars, solar, whatever it is? Because check out this Jeep right here. This Jeep goes for $100,000. It's a Grand Wagoneer, right? And I'm looking at it like, who in their right mind thinks it's a smart idea to spend $100,000 on a Jeep? And I get it, they're nice. They're nice Jeeps. But for $100,000, you can get something like this, you can get something like that. And it is just not worth spending $100,000+ on a Jeep. And I feel like, who is out of touch at designing cars and saying, you know what we're gonna do sitting in the meeting room? We're gonna offer the American people $100,000 in an SUV. Yeah, let's go sell $100,000 Jeep SUV. And I'm just like, where's, the average salary in the United States is about 70,000. So why do you think it's a good idea to sell $100,000 Jeep that people need to work almost a year and a half for to just afford a Jeep that's going to last you about 5 years? So where does that make sense? And I'm interested to see what you guys think, because this video came about because a viewer sent me this email right here, basically saying that they're, moving all these jobs to Mexico. And I'm just looking at it and it's just not good. It's not like I don't want Mexico to succeed or I don't want the Mexican people to have jobs. It's just that it's never as it seems, and it's never as good as they make it out to be. It's never, if it would have been done correctly and all these things would have been done in a matter of, transparency and, and oversight, I wouldn't mind that, but it's not. It's just not. And when you have things that go on like that, like when there's trends, there's always trends, right? There's trends everywhere, right? And once these trends pick up, what are you going to do as normal Americans? Because there is more and more talk about, oh, where are you going to go work? There's two industries: government and and um and the medical apparatus, right? So healthcare and government, and those are going to be the only thing. And design, right? Because when you look at the iPhones, what does it say in the background? Designed in California, right? So then you have design and medical and government. And those are going to be the three sectors, because we're not producing anymore. We're not manufacturing anymore. We're basically just behind a computer, basically just drawing the stuff up and then being done with it. And, once that starts rolling and we don't have, once we've outsourced enough, there's no going back. And then if there's going to be, supply line issues and all that other stuff, then we're going to be in trouble again. And we're going to be like, oh, we should have moved stuff back and do all that. But then it's going to take us years, to get up to speed. And when I'm looking at, computer chips and all that, and you see the China-Taiwan thing going on, and you're like, if there's an issue in the world, right, with China and Taiwan, then who's going to produce all these semiconductors, all these microchips, right? And then it's like, oh, just because we wanted cheaper chips and did all that, so then we've basically just outsourced everything. So it's like, okay, we want cheaper cars, so we'll outsource them and move them to Mexico. And we want cheaper, TV, so we outsource them to Mexico. And then all of a sudden, Americans like, I can't afford that. And so then we're here, right? So then we're gonna be here. We're mass layoffs, higher unemployment, and what are we gonna do? Politicians are gonna give free money, right? Seems nice. I'd love to get some free money, but it's gonna, if everybody gets free money, then the problem is when everybody gets free money, that everything's gonna keep going up, keep inflation at the highest rate ever. Why? Because when you have inflation creeping up, getting, people got free money, then all of a sudden somebody's got to pay for that, right? So then some of these things are going to be junk bonds, right? So that they're going to try to sell to other countries so we can, exchange junk bonds for goods, right? And then when junk bonds people are going to dump these junk bonds, it's going to, cause another crisis where we were before, right? So we're just in a really, really crazy spot where we allow these companies to go abroad, and instead of actually telling them, hey, what you're doing is really damaging and you cannot do that. And if you're going to do it, we're going to tax the hell out of you. If you want to sell to the US market and you're not having, this is my idea. So this is my idea actually. If you're selling $1 million worth of items or revenue in the United States, you need to have at least that much, probably 100. But if you sell $1 billion, you need to have at least a few thousand people. And you come up with a ratio, right? You come up with a ratio that is justifiable, right? And if you do not have that many people employed in the United States and your revenue is 52 billion and you have only a few hundred people employed at your company, we're going to start taxing that revenue, because who knows how good and how great those, how much it costs to manufacture in another country, right? Like, oh, I'm going to write this off. I'm going to write this off because, investments here, investments there. We don't care about any of that. We care about what happens inside the United States, right? So what we need to do is say, hey, if you're going to make $1 billion, you need 1,000 employees. That's it. If you do not have 1,000 employees to make $1 billion in revenue, we're going to tax you, because we need to protect the American people, right? And we went to war over more stupid stuff than that, right? We went to war for oil and all this other kind of crazy things. So why not start declaring war on these companies that go out? Because at one point, it's going to be a national security crisis. Why do I think it's going to be a national security crisis? Because if people don't have jobs, if people don't make money, they're going to do desperate things to make money, right? Because once there is a lack of jobs, people do criminal activities, right? Because they have free time, they can't find jobs. So what do? You turn to areas that are kind of grayish, exploiting scams and all that kind of stuff, so you can keep food on the table, right? So it is a crisis. And yeah, I just think we need to start now before it's too late. Because once it's way too late to do all that, then there's like almost no going back, right? Once we've already started with all these crazy things, then we don't need to go back, because it's too far gone. These people lost all the knowledge. All these people have been, retrained or been unemployed for too long, and there's no going back. But we're still at a spot where we can turn things around, right? We're Americans. We can do whatever we want, and we can always figure stuff out. But if it's too late and the music already stopped and you don't have a chair, we're going to be there and be like, oh, okay, that sucks. And then what other industry do we have that is huge? Defense, right? So what are we going to do? Oh, we'll just go to war again. And I don't think that that's I don't think that that's a good reason to deploy all troops. But at one point, you got to do something. And so what do? Well, let's go take some resources from other countries because what else is there? You know, if we can't go get jobs, people in my comment section been screaming, join the Navy, join the military. They have stability. Yeah, because you're going to get deployed and you're going to get, you know, shipped overseas and you're going to fight for American interests abroad. So who are we going to deploy inside the United States to fight for our rights and our freedom and our, you know, jobs? Who are we going to deploy inside the United States to do that? And this is what I'm going to end the video about. So if you watched for so long, let me know how we can do that. I really appreciate you guys. Did a walk today. It's nice and warm out. So yeah, let me know, because it'd be pretty cool to deploy somebody to start, you know, enforcing stuff like we do abroad inside the United States. So I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.